Don't shoot me. I'm just protesting about things you should be protecting. Don't shoot me. All I have is a shirt, pants, and shoes with loose laces. Don't shoot me. A placard is not a weapon. You're the one weaponized to shoot me. Don't shoot me. My mother is waiting for me to come back home. So don't shoot me. The God in you can only take life, and I might need my life back. So don't shoot me. Hashtags won't bring me back to life. So don't shoot me. I'm not high. It's the electricity bill that's too high. Don't shoot me. My brother needs a job, and my other brother needs to start thinking about a job. Don't shoot me. For walking after curfew, to be poor is a crime, and I'm not the prison type. Don't shoot me. I'm just saying, if the rich get bail and the poor cannot afford bail, then maybe our prisons are not full of criminals. They're just full of poor people. But don't shoot me. Our stadiums are a joke, except they're nothing to play with. But don't shoot me. We celebrate the tens of talents that win out there and forget to mourn the millions of talents we kill here. Don't shoot me. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. Hatred kills people. People in positions of leadership who don't take a shot at leading kill people. Hospitals without oxygen kill people. Fake doctors left to run unregulated hospitals kill people. Ambulances that needed to send cash fast before they're in emergency service kill people. Division kills people. To render people jobless without financial cushion is to kill people. People with everything keep taking from people who have nothing. That's how you kill people. People with nothing to give needed to give your voices because silence has killed people. I'm just saying, a world without love kills people. I mean, check it. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. The Son of God became the Son of Man, so we could be called the children of God. And I'm thinking, it's hard to understand resurrection when life got to sinking, but I'm sinking deep in His love. There, my spirit will find revelation. We're not deserving. It's His love that's astonishing, it's astounding, it's binding, it's blinding. We are children who can't see the magnitude of our Father's love. If we implemented God's love, we would be better. Things would be better. We would do better. The Bible says, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth.
The first two chapters of the Bible, God is telling us of the state the world was in before the fall. And He tells us how He created. And the way He began to create the world from a situation of a formlessness, darkness, there was a sense of order and progression towards goodness. So that on the first day after He separated the darkness and the light, He said it was good. And then on the second day, He continued to create, separating the waters and the ground. And He said it was good. So there was a progression that was going on towards goodness, so that the number of goodness continued to increase to the level that when He got to the sixth day when he created man in his image and made him to be the ruler of all things, he breathed into man in a way that he had never done to other creation, so that man would be the overall. And he gave to man the woman, and they got married, and they were to rule over all creation. So everything that he had created was good. There was nothing that was imperfect.
Genesis 1 tells us that God created the universe. He created nature as we know it. And Genesis 2 tells us that God made man in his image, male and female, he made them. And he gave them the assignment to nurture and take care of the garden and everything in it. And when God made creation, he said, everything is good. He saw it, he said, it is good. But then in Genesis 3, we see sin enters, because God gave everything to man. He told him, you can eat anything, everything you find, you can eat, except for this one tree you cannot eat, because the day you eat from it, you would die. And that death wasn't necessarily a physical death that happened right away, but it was a spiritual death that started from separating from God. And so Genesis 3, we see that sin entered, and as a result, man started hiding from God. Man started running away from God. And so when the very voice that he used to hear in the garden became a source of fear for him, he was afraid. And before that, there was no fear between man and God. There was a beautiful relationship. But once sin entered, fear also entered. And so that separation, that gap between man and God started widening since that moment. The second one, of course, is we see that he started feeling shame and guilt. He says that they saw themselves, they are naked. And from that day on, they couldn't see themselves right. And that's one consequence of sin. So sin distorts. Of course, when we miss our relationship with God, when our relationship with God is broken, our relationship with ourselves also will be broken. And the third one, we see that his relationship with Eve, Adam and Eve's relationship was also affected, because they started blaming one another. Instead of taking responsibility for what the choices they made, they started pointing fingers at one another. And that is something that we see later on. It started widening. Of course, their children, Cain and Abel, we see throughout the Bible, until even now in our history, in our days, we see it that whenever something is distorted within us, we immediately point fingers at people. We immediately, blaming others for what we should take responsibility for. And so that's the consequence. His relationship with his neighbor, his relationship with a fellow man was broken. And the fourth one, we see his relationship with nature. The very work, the very assignment God gave him became very difficult. And he couldn't get the results that he used to get before, faster and quicker and better. He couldn't find it. He couldn't become fruitful in the work that he does. The Bible says that the ground was cursed because of man.
Now, Africa is a great continent, but Africa has suffered looting for too long. First by the colonialists, and then by the neo-colonialists, people who took over power. And they have modeled their way of managing the affairs of a nation from the examples of those who were there before we got our independence. And so we have patterned ourselves that way, and that is the biggest challenge we have. The colonial government, for instance, was engaged in an extractive way of looking at the affairs of a nation. It's about the benefits they get from that particular nation, rather than the benefits that accrue in that particular nation as a result of their governance. So a number of generations now, largely 5 getting to 6 decades, since majority African countries got their independence, we have had leaders who have still continued the same old model of managing the affairs of a nation. It's about what you get from the nation you're leading, rather than the benefits that that nation gets as a result of your leadership in that country. So one of those is balkanization and nepotism and ethnic orientations, basically to divide and rule. The Britons introduced divide and rule. And even today, the biggest challenge we have, even here in Kenya, is we have leaders who will emerge from your ethnic background and they will want to practice exactly what the Britons did. So you divide and rule. So you divide, so this becomes Kamba Nation, Meru Nation, or Luo Nation, or Kikuyu Nation. And then once you differentiate people, now you get some leading lights who are your friends from those communities. So if you can put this together, then the rest of you are taken care of. That has been our biggest nightmare in terms of governance.
I think everything is about perspective. I'm not sure I'm going to say outside of values, because what Christians should have is particular set of values, particular mindset about how we look at life. We should have a biblical worldview, a particular way in which we look at how God would do things. I think once that is catered for, which would mean what is my value system, my value set, what are the things I will not do, and what are the things I'm going to do. I want to tell Christians the rest is myth. The rest of the struggle is myth. Because once you have a value system, then the whole aspect in people's minds that it is hard for a Christian to do business, it is hard for anyone to do business. And that should start setting our minds up to understand that a mindset of serious preparation is required, right?
Some of the wrong mindsets I see associated with digital media here in Africa, one I would say is chasing controversy. You know, Tanzanians gave us the word kiki. That means that before you release any kind of content, you have to, create this fake story around you, and then people will be interested. What I find wrong with that is that becomes a really slippery slope. Once you start, you'll never stop. You tell us this lie about your life, and we get interested, and we just realize that it wasn't true. Then it happens again and again. And in the end, you find that you're actually, running out of fake stories to tell us. And you end up being you end up being someone that is not effective in whichever content that you're putting out.
It looks difficult when you have not engaged yourself in it and sacrificed. Ina take a lot of sacrifice for you who are in sport and to excel, especially when you have to juggle between maybe education, because we have students who do sports, and then we have like the middle-aged youths kama between 25, 30, and responsibilities imesha come, and they have to work at the same time be in sport. So that's where the challenge comes, because now you have to balance both ways. Lazima usome if you are a student, na uachieve hizo grade poa shule. At the same time, you have to be involved in the sport which you like and excel. So inamaanisha you will have to sacrifice a lot. Most of the sports teams you see here in Kenya, they don't pay. If they pay, it's very little for you to manage to run your family. So unapata, you cannot concentrate fully in sport and be able to cater for your family. Yeah, so that's like the picture I can draw for a young sports person in Kenya.
Challenges that most players and sportsmen face is, I think, mostly is facilities, mostly is the environment that you come from, the people around you, the influence that you get from the society and your friends as you move along in your path of life, and in terms of sports as well. So you can find that you can be having friends that decide to live differently from how you're living, and they influence you.
When you look across Africa, we have had dominant individuals. They could be military personnel for those that have actually been overrun through military coup, or those who are given the instruments of power by the colonial government, and their families have continued to play the bigger brother role in an entire nation. So in terms of how do people feel, unless you belong to the club, you cannot be able to lead a nation. So those who have access to capital and political power have sought to remain in power. What that has done is that it has made everyone else believe unless you come from this and this background, you cannot become a leader. So we have packaged our leadership as one that is provided by those who have money, and those who have wealth, but also we have packaged our governance in terms of who can be a good leader, in terms of how they are able to mobilize the people, even if they are not rallying them around anything substantive that will change their life for the betterment.
I've often seen profit when I looked at my friends, when believers in business, there's a sense that profits are bad. Right? It's almost like if you're making money, like profits, then you're evil. Then the worst part of hell is reserved for you. But then you have the flip side in the sort of secular world where it's almost like life is all about profit. Right? That and I've seen it destroy people. Right? Like where it's like the only thing you're living for is money. Right? Like where money is a good thing, but it can be something that is enslaving, right? So I'd say that's probably like one of the big ones I've seen.
I think one of the evils that came into the world from the fall was something we call greed. I mean, greed breeds so many things, with it from corruption to envy to it just has a darkness about it that cannot be quenched, and that is one of the enemy's biggest tools. I'll tell you what, the reason you do anything you do is Jesus told us to not worry about 4 things. Do not worry about what you will eat. Do not worry about what you will wear. Do not worry about what you will do not worry about what you'll eat, what you will drink, what you will wear, and don't worry about tomorrow. These are the things that everybody in the world, if you categorize your worries, they fall in those 4 things. No matter how sophisticated it is, it falls into one of these 4. So anybody in an SME, anybody in a business, again, coming down to the values of God, must start to ask themselves, what am I here for? Because fulfillment won't come because I'm running a good SME. Fulfillment will come because of purpose. Am I doing what I'm supposed to do? If I think of it as money first, I'll constantly be in this cycle. But if I think of it as fulfillment, then the way our world, our kingdom works is that there will be provision for my purpose.
One of the things that has been a wrong mindset is that if you're wanting to do anything meaningful on social media in terms of production, is that you need to have a lot of money. So you need to have expensive cameras, you need to have really good microphones, you need to have a big following, you need to have an influencer, you need to have a big team. I think that's one of the negative things. And the other negative thing is that people always feel like social media isn't real life. So whenever you're doing something online, specifically when you're talking in the church context, people often, for some reason, don't see it as being real life. They see it as just, oh, it's this thing over there. It's a weird one. And the thing that I think we're realizing more and more is that who you are in person and who you are on social media is generally the same person. So when someone speaks to you on social media, they're speaking to you, a human being. They're just using a digital device. And when you respond, you're still responding as a human being.
The media has been used by different people. Let me talk about governments using it to, want to take power. In Burundi, we had a lot of coup. So media could be used to take over a whole country. So the media has been seen into the realm of as a tool of oppression, as a tool of wrong practices.
The other wrong mindset I would say is, this thing of giving the fans what they want. No, I say, don't give the fans what they want. Give the fans what they need. I'll give you just examples in the Bible of people who are actually really famous, because for a lot of people in digital media, you want to get known and all those things. Jesus Christ and John the Baptist. Jesus Christ had actual followers, people following him, not online, but on foot. John the Baptist actually went to preach in the wilderness, and thousands of people came to be baptized. He did not give them what they wanted. He gave them what they needed. We see John even speaking to the scribes and Pharisees and calling them broods of vipers. Jesus Christ was all about repent, the kingdom of heaven is here. So I think as content creators, especially Christian content creators, we really, really need to give the people the truth of God. And if you want fame, you know what? Seek ye first his kingdom and his righteousness. All those other things will follow you.
During our years, when anyone thought about music or musicians, ilikuwa tu ni ile hawa watu wa kuvuta bangi, hawa watu wa kufanya hivi, hawa watu wa kufanya hivi, hawa ni wale watu wa kulewa, hawa ni wale watu wa hii. Because we at that particular time we didn't have kind of like quote unquote enough role models or enough blueprints to kind of like inject the philosophy or positive perception towards kind of like music. So I remember when I started music, people thought I was going to be crazy, and the only thing they were waiting for is to put me, there's a hospital back in the day in Mombasa, when wazimu ilikuwa inaitwa Portrees. So they were waiting for me to go there. And so as I was, growing up as an artist and stroke creative, I come to realize that, hii ni bangi yenye watu walisema wa musicians wanavutanga hii bangi, so wacha tuvute hii bangi. Hii ni pombe, ama hii ni yale madem. Hii ni kitu fulani. So a lot of times the challenges that we incur during our time, especially in the premise of music or creativity, is usually stemmed through all these facts that we grew up with this information being injected in us. And also the other thing that comes in, it's like when you look at it now from the spiritual point of view, it's like we are occupying an office that is centered around, the world agenda, the world order of things. We are, yes, creatives in the kingdom, but also we are occupying a space where already the devil has already put his agenda. And also we get to see some other ministers that we have seen them worshiping God. We have seen them occupying the offices of the highly esteemed offices, kind of like lose it, because the battle is really, really, really crazy up there. The perception of looking cool. How do we still get accepted? Can we, let's say, adapt to a particular dynamic so that we bring people close to, without compromising my character? Can I relate myself with this person without, compromising my character? So basically, those are the things that the creatives, especially us musicians, have been in, because we are occupying an office that has too much light shining upon that particular minister or that particular person, and immediately a shine lights on you, the world already sees. And when the world sees, the agenda now, the devil's agenda is to make sure that that light is dimmed or that light is not shining. So that's the biggest challenge that we've been able to have.
When you look back at what was happening to those people, there's so many similarities to our own time. And I want to read from Jeremiah chapter 5. So that's just the previous chapter. And I'll read from verse 26. And the Bible says, "Among my people are the wicked, who lie in wait like men who snare birds, and like those who set traps to catch people." And I'm sure you know about people like that in our world and in our time. Like cages full of birds, their houses are full of deceit. They have become rich and powerful and have grown fat and sleek. Their evil deeds have no limit. They do not seek justice. They do not promote the case of the fatherless. They do not defend just cause of the poor. And is that something that we see in the world around us? I'll come back to this, and I'll just touch on some of the things that I see that you may have seen. Verse 29, it says, God says, should I not punish them for this? Declares the Lord. Should I not avenge myself on such a nation as this? And I pray that God will not be saying that about me. Should he not avenge himself against me and the things that I'm doing? He says in verse 30 something interesting. A horrible and shocking thing has happened in the land. The prophets prophesy lies. The priests rule by their own authority, and my people love it this way. But what will you do in the end? And that comes back to that question. What will you do in the end? In the prophets and the priests, they're doing stuff. Why? We have that so present in our world today. We are told by prophets, by priests about stuff, and they tell us the things that we want to hear, the things that we feel we want to be comforted, and they tell us those things. What are they looking for? Maybe they're looking for acclaim. Some of them are looking for a little bit of money here and there, your contribution. They want to have a big following. And so, you tell people certain things and more people will come to your church. More people will come to your website and watch what you're saying. But what is going to be the result if what you're being given is not the truth? Guys, you're being told, go back to the paths and you have the path. It's in the scripture.
One of the things we need to do as Africans, particularly Christians, is realize we have the advantage of numbers. We must engage. We must be willing to shape the perspectives of people because we are part of the society. We don't live in another world. We live in Africa. We live in the communities. Whoever will be elected becomes our leader as well. So one of the key things I suggest that we need to consider seriously is actually rolling our sleeves and getting into the campaign trails and the meetings that discuss candidates, that present opinions differently. Number two, we also need to put our resources into those who are getting elected into offices, because you can't ask me to account when you were not interested in my candidature in the first place. And number three is that we need to be ready to get it wrong. I mean, it's okay to support a candidate who does not win. So since your candidate has not won does not mean you got it wrong. One of the challenges we are having today, that we have many who fear to support a candidate who may lose. So we are not able to engage in a principled way. But when we make our choice, including churches, it is okay to make a choice and get it wrong. I know the politics around there and the members who are having different candidates. It is fine. But when we don't engage them and help them in the presence of analyzing and getting to know who would be a better option given those who have offered themselves. Number four, I think, we need to get people to offer themselves to provide leadership. In every election, you go by those who have already given themselves to actually to be elected. So when good people don't volunteer themselves to the people to be considered as a potential candidate and engage vigorously, then we will have a choice of between two evils, and we will have to choose one anyway. So I think our future is in engaging in a robust and in a structured way, so that we don't only support candidates who have been packaged and engaged by others, but we were part and parcel of campaign teams, Bunge la Mwananchi teams, those are teams that sit around corner public spaces in towns to just analyze and talk about what people are saying in terms of manifestos. If we, the majority, at least I can speak authoritatively about Kenya, where we unashamedly are 80% plus Christian. If we can down our fears and openly walk into the community and engage, aware that we have a God in heaven who empowers us, who gives us what to say in any conversation, as the Bible tells us, we can make a difference. In terms of governance, we can now push for accountability. We can push for prioritization of resources in ways that will transform communities. So leaders don't take those as personal resources, but they become custodians of community resources, and they are only managers of those resources, and therefore we have a right to question, we have a right to discuss on what priority projects should be engaged in.
So some practical steps that I think we can take, especially as Christians, towards coming out with proper godly content. One, I would say, very basic, answer the question, why? Let's have a clear why. Why are you in digital media in the first place? If it's just because you want people to know you, is it just because you want to make a little bit of money but you're not really concerned about the content that you're releasing to the masses? If that foundation is wrong, then in the end we're going to be dealing with issues, all sorts of issues that we've been tackling here in this session, but the problem really is the foundation. It doesn't matter what kind of content you're creating. You could be a musician, you could be a DJ, you could be teaching us how to cook, how to ride bikes, but if you're not teaching us how to be Christ-like, then it doesn't matter at all. Maybe you're not even preaching in your content, but just through you, in one way or another, we're supposed to be able to be led to Christ, to see what it's like to be a Christian. One other thing that I think could be a really practical step is having mentors in your field, people who are morally upright, who are spiritually upright, and also being able to accept correction. Because we have people who have mentors, but they don't listen to them, which beats the purpose in the first place. You don't really need a mentor if you're not even going to follow what they tell you. Especially in music, we see so many new artists who they don't really care about what the older generation or just any pastor or anyone in church wants to tell them. So have mentors and be ready to listen, be ready to learn from them. And I think from that point, we'll be able to get to a place where we have proper digital content that is actually impactful in today's generation.
Before we use those platforms, we ourselves should understand what is the message am I giving? And it's a message of hope, of love, of faith. That's the message that should be going out there. And we cannot really use our medium in the right or godly way unless we really understand the core message that we need to giving to people. And the message is about love, hope, and faith.
So the question is, are we fixing our community before we demand our community to live right? Are we fixing our youth, their homes, their lives? And this is why, even with our music, as we sing songs to worship God, as we write songs that worship the magnificent God, I believe it's also going to be able to create change when the community begins to realize that we're writing lyrics that also are in touch with some of their things that they're experiencing in life. Sometimes you can write a story that anyone can relate with, but show them a path of hope. And that's why a lot of times when people describe gospel music and they describe what they call popular music or secular music, people always refer to secular music as music that's real. Now the thing is, Christ is real to us, but the thing is that we must not always consistently present Christ as something that is out of touch with what people are going through in reality. So again, it always comes back to us. It really does come back to us as believers. If you cannot neglect the one-on-one, you cannot neglect reaching out to the community, you cannot neglect building relationships, because that was one of the most powerful tools that Christ did. Outside of miracles, he was building relationships. People literally wanted to be around him. They knew who he was. They knew what he was about. Sinners weren't running away from him. They literally just wanted to be around him. And if we could just have a fraction, whether this part of what that grace that Christ has, then I believe definitely we'll see the change that we want to see in the creative industry and in our lives. And these misconceptions are built up because people don't know anything else. It's the world that's presented to them. But I believe that we know better and we can do better. And the word of God says, greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. Because of greed, it is a hard environment, because of corruption, for people to work and get what they're supposed to get. The system is not fair, but that's how the world has always been. It's not fair. You will find that where there are opportunities, whether with government, tenders will be awarded unfairly. If you come to where there are opportunities for work, people will be abused in different ways, and it's not been a fair market. But with that said, we do have to survive. We do have to feed, and we have to first seek God for guidance. So I'd say people need to develop a very strong sense of resilience. Resilience is key. People must become extremely resilient to the environment, because that consistency against that environment is going to help you be able to emerge despite the resilience, by God's help, right? The second thing we have to do is we must become good at what we do. We must become very good at what we do, that we cannot be denied the opportunity. The third thing we must do is we must lift one another up. So I, a fellow Christian, must be able to see another Christian who's able to do something. And this has been something I've lived by. I've employed Christians. I've brought, different businesses. I have friends in different countries. We encourage one another. We say, let's stand together. Yes, it's disappointing. Sometimes Christians may not deliver, may not do what needs to be done. That doesn't mean we don't go back and train them, show them what needs to get done. So SMEs need to start doing the third thing, which is very important, which is networking. And therefore belonging to this, because business is about, believe it or not, as good as your product is, down the line, business is about relationship. Therefore, relationship management. Did you know that by supplying a certain number of kilos of potatoes every month, you can send your kids to school and live well? Cabbages, carrots, tomatoes, water. There is enough to go around. This world is not yet too full. The day it's too full, God will let us know. So the resources He put in place are enough. The problem is, I want a bigger place to sleep. I want a bigger tomorrow plan. So what has happened is I keep amassing, whereas I'm unable to share and to distribute. So to SMEs and to businesses, I say consistency, relationship, networking, being able to be good at what you do, but at the same time, measure your hunger. Can I live on a certain amount and say that that's enough? And people will judge and say, people can talk like that when they've reached a certain place. Fair enough. But the point is, all of us have to have a self-assessment as to when is enough. Because that is Africa's biggest problem at the moment. So there are enough opportunities. I'll give you a fifth one on SMEs. Don't just think local, especially for younger generations moving into digital thinking, digital aspect. The world has changed. The world has completely changed, right? The companies, I've just come from a meeting to do with communications and the whole question around branding. The whole world has changed. What some of these large organizations did 20 years ago, it's impossible for them to do today. And so innovation has become easier because now smaller companies can easily do what larger companies could not do. You want to disrupt banking? It has begun. One of the biggest disruptors of banking is something I'm involved in, but not here locally, but across the world. There's one of the biggest disruptors of credit cards is buy now, pay later business models. Nobody saw it coming. One of the biggest disruptors to phone companies or to phone manufacturers was a company that was not even involved in making phones. So if you see where the world has gone, the opportunity is in being sharp and being smart to see, one, the world is now a village, and I can position myself, even if I sell Kenyan merchandise, to be a global shop. I can position product, I can brand right, I don't have to spend the kind of money that a bank would spend before on positioning itself. Even car companies have started changing how they're doing advertising. They're using new models. We've changed how we're looking at food. We've changed how we're looking at nutrition. It's a very informed generation on new things. Cosmetics. I mean, why would companies come and buy local companies for millions of dollars that manufacture hair product. What do you think it is? It's organic. It's that our products are organic. So it's putting on our thinking hat, which is one thing God has given us. We have to think. There is a problem and there's a solution. In between is thinking.
My appeal to everyone, especially in the sports industry, because that's where I'm well acquainted to. I would like all of us to go back to the ways of God, because tukienda back to the grassroots kwa ways zenye Mungu ameprepare for us, everything, the Bible says in his time everything is perfect. We do the right things at the right time and in the right way. Kama kijana amekuja, he has talent, you know he has the talent. You are a coach like me. Don't ask him for a bribe ndio umpatie opportunity to showcase that talent. Okay? So give him the platform, because that's hata mimi mwenyewe coach, I'm a steward of what God has given me. I used to play football myself, and so if the people whom I met did not give me the opportunity to showcase what I could do, hata mimi singekuwa hapa. So in the same way, as a coach and as a leader, wherever God has put you, lazima ujue wewe tu ni steward. Mungu amekuweka hapo to do his work. So do the right thing. Saidia huyo kijana. Let him succeed, not for the glory of the coach, but for God's glory. And then to the sportsmen, but there is no shortcut. Work hard, trust God, you will come through. God sees the deepest secrets that no one can see. Ukiwa peke yako uko nje and you work, unaenda unafanya road work, you go and train yourself, Mungu anaona. Me, the coach, I may not see. And that's na tumeona even in our teams, you are training, you are having a match, a scout comes, na anachukua player mwenyewe u expect. But if you go back and ask huyo player their life outside where the coach is, atakwambia, I pray so hard and I work hard. God is faithful in all these things. And like I said earlier, you can only do those right things when Jesus is in your heart.
Now, I'd say honestly, like two of my favorite verses. Funny one is actually on my ring. It says it's Galatians 2:20, right? That the idea that I no longer live, but Christ lives in me, right? I think that there's a need for constantly reminding oneself that you're dead. Christ is the one who lives in you. When it comes to some of the things you're talking about, whether the way you're treating people, the way you're acting ethically, that there's a constant reminder that, the Christ is the one who's living in you. You have strength in Christ, right? Because business can be challenging, right? Like there's a lot of things that hit you, there's a lot of things you need to solve, but that to me, always remembering the life I now live is Christ, right? And also the second one is around just like renewal of your mind, right? I think that for me at least, I had a pretty dirty and corrupt mind before I became a Christian. So I'd say that, and I think we tend to underlook that. That to me, I remember this lady, Helen Roosevelt, we used to say that you're not going to become a little bit more like Christ by just reading the newspaper, right? And I think that, for me, it's like, be careful what you consume, right? That those things have an impact, right? That like the things you're watching, the things you're choosing to do and, spend your time on have an impact, right?
The key thing you must understand, and this is the key reset, you're going back to looking to God. And as you connect with God, the one who created us all, as we get back into his manual, one of the things you must also learn is to reconnect with other people and to be a blessing to other people. Then your life becomes successful. So reset. This is the call that we have in this time.
In a land where there are no musicians, in a land where there are no storytellers, teachers, and poets, in a land where there are no men and women of vision and leadership, in a land where there are no legends, saints, and champions, in a land where there are no dreamers, the people will most certainly perish. But you and I, we are the music makers. We are the storytellers, teachers, and poets. We are the men and women of vision and leadership. We are the legends, the saints, and the champions. Ooh. And we are the dreamers of the dreams. Let us sit with God for a few minutes each day and dream with Him. And with the vision He places in our hearts, go out into the world with a contagious love that cannot be ignored.